got to be careful because I always want to say First Fridays, but it is First Wednesdays. This Friday is First Fridays. Go to that too. I'm Jeff Hornsby. I'm the director of the Regnier Institute and the chair of the Department of Global Entrepreneurship and Innovation. And we want to welcome you here again. It's my privilege to help host this event. We've got a really good panel for you. I want to acknowledge Dean Brian Kloss, who's over there. Thank him for coming. And thank any of the Entrepreneurship and Innovation or other faculty here, please stand up. I want to just thank you for coming as well. And clap extra loud for your own professor. That's always a good thing too. But we're glad to have you. Next month's first Wednesday speaker, we're excited to have Toby Rush. Just to give, I know you'll hear some more news about that, but Toby is one of the individuals that we're honoring in the Entrepreneur of the Year event in November. He is our Regional Entrepreneur of the Year. So he's got a good story to tell and is really good at answering questions and interacting with students. So put that on your calendar. I'm going to turn it over to Brian Boots, one of our team members, the Managing Director for Venture Creation in the Regnier Institute. He's going to handle the announcements and talk about an exciting competition that we're doing.
Thank you, Dr. Hornsby. Good evening. Nice to see full house. So raise your hand if you have ever found yourself as a user of a product asking yourself, why did they make it this way? Why didn't they make it this way? Or I could do this better. Or I have an idea for how this product could be better. Raise your hand. Okay, so more than half of you, maybe almost all of you it looks like. So that's a good starting place for being an entrepreneur. A lot of the most successful entrepreneurs out there started with that exact same issue or same question going through their mind. They just had a problem that they personally experienced that they put a solution together for. So another question, raise your hand if you had $30,000 to help you work on that idea, would that be something that would be useful for you? Okay. Also, quite a few of you. So how many of you have gotten paid for taking a class? You don't need to raise your hands. So if you raised your hand to one or both of those questions, or if you were just shy and you would have raised your hand and you didn't, but you were thinking yes, Entrepreneurship Quest is for you, EQ. It is a new student pitch competition taking place across all of the 4 University of Missouri system campuses. UMKC is one, but there's also Missouri St. Louis, Mizzou in Columbia, and Missouri Science and Tech in Rolla. All 4 of these campuses are having student entrepreneurs compete for $60,000 in cash prizes. So if you did find yourself answering yes to those questions, if you have an idea for something that you think would be interesting to pursue, and you've always kind of wondered if it's feasible, if it's viable, but you've never sat down and actually fleshed it out, or if you do have an idea that you've been working on for a long time and you're just looking for potential funding for that idea, this is an excellent outlet for that. So there's a couple phases to it. The most important piece that you need to know for now is applications are due on October 29th. So if you're interested in competing, you can send an email to entrepreneurship@umkc.edu. If you don't know how to spell entrepreneurship, just start typing ENTRE in Google and it'll complete it for you. And then copy that, add umkc.edu at the end, and you can send us an email. We're doing workshops to help you with these ideas that you may have to help flesh them out a little bit in a little bit more detail. We have 2 more. We have one on this coming Monday from 5:30 to 7 in room 414, which is in this building, which is 2 floors up in a classroom over there. And we have another workshop the following Monday, October 15th, to help you, again, flesh out your idea a little bit more. And come, ask questions, workshop your idea, dive in a little bit deeper. It's not required that you go to the workshops to be able to participate in the competition. It's just a resource there for you. If you're unable to come to the workshops, but you're interested in participating, send an email here and we'll add you to a Canvas site that has all sorts of resources that we go over in these workshops. So $60,000, October 29th is the number or the date you have to keep in mind for now. Another thing I wanted to share with you is a really great opportunity if you're a student in the audience. So we have, Dr. Hornsby mentioned our annual Entrepreneur of the Year Gala, and we honor entrepreneurs at that event each year, but we also honor a student Entrepreneur of the Year. And so this is a great opportunity for you, one, to earn some scholarship money. There's $2,500 scholarship attached to this honor. Two, you receive an invitation to attend and actually speak briefly at this gala event. So it'll put you in front of hundreds of who's who in business and entrepreneurship in Kansas City. So to apply, one, if you, when you were signing in at the front desk there's some printed applications. You can grab one if you didn't already. And or you can send an email to, again, entrepreneurship@umkc.edu, and we'll get you the information that you need. You have to do a very brief personal statement, about 1 page. You need a letter of recommendation from one of your professors, and then just some basic application form stuff. All right, with that, I'd like to turn it over to Salem. Salem is going to be moderating our panel this evening. Salem is president of our UMKC Enactus chapter, which if you... I'm going to say, if you don't know about it, you should definitely get involved, but it sounds like most of you already know about it, so that's great. She's also a junior studying entrepreneurship here at UMKC, and take it away, Salem.
All right, good evening, everyone. Like Brian said, my name is Salem Hopte. I'm really thrilled to be leading this panel today with a couple people that I really care about and have worked with in the past. So without further ado, it is my honor to introduce Zach Pettet, Managing Director of FinTech Accelerator, if you'd like to come up. No, Zach Pettet. All right. And I'd also like to bring up Megan Darnell, Program Manager of the Fountain City FinTech. Zach and Megan are really involved in the entrepreneurial community in Kansas City. They're both UMKC Block School grads, and we're very involved in that community here as well. In fact, Megan Darnell was not only a huge part of our Enactus team and was president, she worked at the Regnier Institute, participated in Entrepreneurship Scholars with her venture, Nature's Finest Produce, and won second place in the Regnier Venture Creation Challenge just this past May. Zach also won Student Entrepreneur of the Year back in 2015 and worked for the Regnier Institute as well. So both really great representatives of the Block School and have done a lot in this community. So let's get started. Zach, if you'd like to introduce yourself, talk about your background, how you got interested in FinTech, and how you got to Fountain City FinTech.
Definitely. Can everyone hear me? Yes. All right. Awesome. So I'm just going to move past the Beauty and the Beast awkward picture that we have up there.
Like the best awkward family photo there possibly ever was.
I think, day 4 that we were working together at the bank, and we got cornered, and they were like, we need a picture of you together for the rest of the bank, and that's the awkwardness that happened. So anyways, Zach Anderson Pettet, somewhat recent graduate, I guess, at this point. I've been saying recent graduate for long enough that I guess I need to pivot that now. Graduated in 2015. The first thing, I guess, that I did out of school was, while I was still in school, I joined a company called Bloom. Was an early employee there, kind of the first one under 40, the token millennial, if you will, and kind of worked there for 2 years through 2 venture rounds, learned a lot, jumped from there over to a company called Black Ops, which is really just a software development firm, kind of custom software development in a lot of different ways. So I was managing developers in India, Ukraine, name a second to third world country, and I probably had some call with them at some point during that job. So learned a lot there, but FinTech specifically for me is something that has always been important to me. My parents struggled a little bit with money. For a lot of reasons, personal responsibility is definitely one of them, but one of the other reasons is definitely just this financial ecosystem that we have as Americans is broken, very, very, very broken in a lot of ways. And that kind of created a lot of questions in my life. And then I ended up doing an internship at well, an investment bank that will remain nameless, I suppose, in college, and that opened my eyes to just the insanity that is the investment industry. The idea that you can, for 1 second have your fiduciary hat on where you have to act in the best interest of your client, and the next second you can just put on a different hat that says, I can just, I can sell you things that generally align, and it has created a plethora of problems in our world. I mean, 2008 is a whole other conversation, but it's a big problem and it needs to be solved, and technology is really the best way to solve it. So that's why I've moved back to working in the fintech industry, working at MBKC Bank specifically, and very, very lucky to have the buy-in from the whole bank to build Fountain City Fintech. And I guess we can get into what that is a little bit down the line, but yeah.
Megan, if you'd like to talk a little bit about how you got to UMKC, how you got involved in entrepreneurship, your experience in Enactus, talk a little bit about your background.
Okay, so like Slim said, Megan Darnell, you can call me Megan Darnell, I guess. But, sorry, my dad jokes get real when I'm nervous, so buckle up. I was born and raised in Southwest Mo. Oh yeah, shout out to my fellow Southwest Missourians. Where Zach grew up in kind of the urban east of Truth side, I grew up in the poorest and most rural county in all of Missouri. So money, again, for me growing up was a big issue. My parents didn't talk about it, I just knew we didn't have it. So going into college, I didn't really think about what I wanted. To be honest, I didn't think much about anything. I stumbled upon a business class and then took another, ended up graduating from community college, going to Drury University in Springfield, Missouri, which is also known as the Harvard of the Midwest, as Ben Williams likes to say. Correct. We all like to say it. After Drury, well actually during Drury is when I got really involved in Enactus and kind of outside of the business world really understood the entrepreneurial world. I was able to kind of start my own pseudo ventures. The first one failed horribly. I mean, like absolutely horribly. It was a farm-to-table initiative that really just
didn't make it to the
bled
table.
money. No, it didn't make it to the table at all. It stayed right in the ground where it belonged. Learned a lot, and then ended up partnering with Edward Jones and doing another partnership with them that was building a school in the Dominican Republic. Shortly thereafter, graduated with my BBA in management and marketing, and I wish someone would have told me this before I started college, but actually kind of sat down and thought, well, what am I good at, what do I like, and how the hell do I make that a job? So I realized, I really loved helping people, I loved travel, I loved the business world, and that was kind of where it ended. So ended up with my boyfriend moving down to Mexico to work on his family farm, starting vertical integration. Actually, what I think I'm gonna have to pay Salim now for the plug, but Nature's Finest Produce is what we founded. Worked on that for a little bit, ended up coming back to the States, found UMKC, applied actually while I was in Mexico, flew up here, and absolutely loved it. So one of the things that I wish I would have known in undergrad was not to spread myself so thin. I was involved in like all the clubs, but I was like a member, or I shook hands with the president and halfway remembered her name. But I came to UMKC and realized, like, if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it all in. And that's when I got involved in Enactus, ended up starting Well Wishes, or Educate to Elevate, where we built a well for a Nigerian school of about 500 students in 5 villages. And now Allie's taking it on, and she is soon to be implementing sanitary facilities, which, if you can imagine a hot Nigerian summer with no sanitary facilities and 500 other classmates, you'll understand why that's such a big deal. Traveled to China with them as well, just really got involved, ended up getting my MBA with a international business and entrepreneurship emphasis. Decided, once again after graduation, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Thankfully, Ben knew for me and said, you have to meet this guy. Long story short, I loved everything about it, had no idea really kind of what the fintech scene entailed, just knew that entrepreneurs and helping others was a passion of mine, and loved the idea of project management. So the rest is history, as they say. Very short history.
Yeah. 3 months?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you guys very much. Like you were sort of saying, Megan, when I began talking to you guys about what you do, I realized that I wasn't really aware of why financial technology is important in Kansas City specifically, and why a financial technology accelerator is relevant and important and up and coming. And so I would love if you guys could both describe what the goal of Fountain City FinTech is. What are you guys trying to accomplish? Where has that taken you so far? And sort of give us some perspective. What's the history of FinTech in Kansas City? Both of you guys, if you guys could enlighten me and the audience.
Yeah, you want me to start unpacking that? So I guess the best place to start is the history of Kansas City, right? And there's some beautiful parts of that that we can talk about, and then there's some more painful parts. Who knows who Scott Tucker is? Raise your hands. 1, 4, okay. All right, so Dirty Money on Netflix is a thing that all of you need to go watch. It's about Scott Tucker, who is kind of the king of payday loans, which is not a thing that you want to be king of because you end up in jail. And he is currently, I think, in the federal penitentiary. I'm not 100% sure where, but he's in the federal penitentiary. And he ran a payday loan behemoth. Basically was running payday loans for 90% of the US population that was doing them online specifically. In Kansas City, you'll see a lot of payday loan shops on the kind of the corner and just in 31st and Main, wherever, just kind of the general areas where that's socioeconomically even going to make sense. But Scott Tucker was doing it on a totally different level, doing it online, and we became known really as the payday capital of the world, payday loan capital of the world specifically. Does anybody know what a payday loan is or have like the general understanding? Anybody ever taken out a payday loan? Had that experience? I'm glad to hear no hands went up, and honestly, even if you had, I probably wouldn't have raised my hand, so that's fair. Payday loans, at the end of the day, what that is if you're not able to make ends meet between those 2 weeks when you're getting a paycheck and you're waiting for your next paycheck, you can go get a quick payday loan in exchange for some kind of collateral that is usually not that intense, and as a result of that not intense collateral, you're going to pay 3, 4, 500% interest rates. Yes, 3, 4, 500%, not like 50% that you would think is crazy. 3, 4, 500%. People will take out $200 loans and end up paying back $1,000, paying back $800. I mean, it ruined people's lives. Quickly to the point, still does, yeah, quickly to the point about my parents, that's actually kind of one of the things that happened there, and one of the really big pain points that we have as a city. So that's the negative side. We're known as this payday loan capital of the world in a lot of ways, but you also look at what else we have as a city in terms of assets. We have H&R Block, we have American Century, we have BATS, we have TradeBot. I mean, it goes on and on and on. We have so many assets in this city. And that's just, the true institutional, we're at one point, or are still today, Fortune 500 companies. You can also look at like the Creative Plannings out south, who's been, one of the #1 registered investment advisors in the US for, I think, like the past 5 years. Nobody really knows about them, but, I think they're managing 30, 35 billion in assets now, and they have Tony Robbins on their board. There's really good hidden gems in Kansas City on top of these institutional players that, as we sit in the block school, it's pretty clear those institutional players, after they grow, they exit and then they reinvest in the community. And one of the things that we've seen over this time frame is you can kind of think of, H&R Block and Henry starting it as, maybe part of the first wave, maybe wave 1.5 or still wave 1 is American Century as well. And then you can almost think of like Dave Cummings and kind of what he's built with TradeBot and building BATS as kind of the second wave, and then Toby Rush, who's going to be here next week, who sold his company recently to Ant Financial, you can think of as kind of the third wave. So with that third wave, Toby is still, he's an investor now, he's running the venture portfolio for Ant Financial, and he's reinvesting, well, not reinvesting, it's Ant Financial's money, but he's running a significant size portfolio and investing throughout the world. So the third wave, I think, is strong, and it has also people like C2FO, Sandy Kemper. It has Bloom involved. It has, Fountain City FinTech is officially 3 days old, but I would like to think that Fountain City FinTech is going to play a really significant role in that over time too. So I think the shift that's happened and the shift that we want to see specifically for Fountain City FinTech is we have Eric Redline here, who's one of our cohort members. He's from Philadelphia. And we would love, down the line, to actually be able to find companies in Kansas City to bring into Fountain City FinTech. We recruited as hard as we could. I mean, we had calls with, 36 cities, 15 time zones, and 6 continents or something like that in the past 2 months?
6 continents. Apparently, Antarctica isn't really up on the FinTech scene yet, but
so we're
next round.
beating Antarctica on the FinTech Hub thing. But the point being, we have 6 companies in town right now, unbelievable quality companies. None of them are from KC. It's likely that some of them will stay here, we'll put down roots, and we'll hire people here, and we'll eventually be Kansas City companies.
Right.
But it's painful for me that not a single Kansas City company is even in this thing. So I love you to death, Eric, but hopefully down the line, it's Kansas Cityans that we have kind of moving into this
Well, and to the
program.
flip side of that, I think there is something to be said with bringing companies to KC. There are huge resources that are untapped, not just from, as me as a new grad, you think of all the things I wish I would have done in graduate school or in undergrad where you're like, oh shit, this existed? I didn't know that. The same is true in the entrepreneurship world for Kansas City. There are tons of resources. We're a great city to build your business, to have your business, and I really think there's some merit into bringing companies from all over the nation, and we also have a company out of Australia coming in, and I would love for them to see KC the way that we see KC and the way it really is, and set up roots here. No pressure, Eric.
Yeah, no pressure, just tons and tons of pressure, and everyone in this room needs to go introduce themselves to them and talk about KC after this. Yeah, I think that the other piece of it is building a stair step, right? So what Fountain City FinTech is. Maybe we should start there. It's a FinTech accelerator. Is everybody generally familiar with what an accelerator is?
Please explain, just to
Just
be
start from there?
redundant.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
have we heard of the Sprint Accelerator? Okay, so starting a business accelerators. Really what it is at the end of the day is taking a company that is usually pretty early on. You're going to generally make an investment as the accelerator into that company. It's usually going to be kind of a standard deal term where you're taking, let's say, 5% of the company for X amount of dollars.
And company means startup.
Yes. And then, for Techstars, an example would be they spent, I think it's $120,000 that they do in exchange for 7%. And that's pretty standard throughout, they do, I don't know how many hundreds of deals a year, but a lot. And then you join the program, you move to the city, or it's kind of online, depending on how it works. Join the program, do 90 days. Generally, you're going to get access to investors, mentors, advice in general. And hopefully the idea is that you come out the other end with the ability to raise a lot of money and go scorch earth. Yeah. So that's what an accelerator is broadly.
And each accelerator kind of has its own shtick. So eScholars is kind of your ideation to launch, to scale. Techstars is obviously about tech. And we're financial technology. So think of, you guys all use financial technology every day, whether you're on...
if it's good or bad. Yeah, if you use your Bank of America app, at the end of the day, that's financial technology, whether you want to throw your phone through the window or not. So...
That actually happened to me the other day.
I know, yeah.
But Venmo, Square, all those things are types of financial technology. If you've ever used kind of money-saving apps, things like that, those are financial technology. And so that's what our Mountain City FinTech, that's the realm which we live, is financial technology. And one of the reasons I kind of came into this world and was like, oh my gosh, this is so important, not just because Venmo is a lifesaver, but honestly, I can remember just not knowing anything about financial literacy, financial technology, financial education. My high school, I think, taught me how to write a check, balance a checkbook. I don't own a checkbook. So that was really useful. But there's just, one of the really cool things about the 6 companies that are in our cohort is they're all focused on real problems, solving real needs. Eric's company, I'll do a quick plug, is kind of focused on youth financial education and really honing in that dynamic, honing in the conversations that are held at home, or starting those conversations when they organically won't start on their own. And we span the gamut from that to your contract working, so your Ubers, taxes, everything in between.
So I learned
that's what we are.
That's what we are. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So one quick thing. The stairs that you can step to a successful company.
Full circle.
Yeah, so with things like Venture Creation Challenge, with things like Digital Sandbox, with these assets that we have in Kansas City where you legitimately just apply, throw an application over the side and, you know, pitch, and then at the other end is either, you know, somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000. These are the things that can really, if you have some hustle in you, get you at least, you know, moving in the right direction. And then if you are focused in financial technology, you have things like Fountain City FinTech where, you know, you've got that first kind of piece of software built. You can jump onto this thing and we're going to spend 75 days with you establishing a partnership. And that's something else that should be explained is the goal of Fountain City FinTech is to establish partnerships between these FinTech companies like Eric's and with the bank. So the problem in FinTech is not necessarily access to capital. It's not necessarily access to talent. I mean, those are still big issues. We all struggle with that. But it's the speed of the bank that these companies have to partner with. So the average partnership in this world takes, a really fast bank moves at about 6 months for a partnership. The average bank, you know, the ones that you want to throw your phone through the window when you open the mobile app, that's 12 months, 18 months, sometime 24 months. And the big thing that we hear that's really interesting is a lot of people will go, you know, you raise a Series A and you need to get this bank partnership done within 12 months. But you only have 16 months of runway, so banks, turns out, don't always follow through on what they said they were going to do because of plethora of reasons. So you can go into these partnerships and not have any kind of outcome. So what we realized is after our first partnership that we did without necessarily, we weren't working overly hard. I mean, we were just kind of working at our normal pace, and we did it in 5 weeks. And we were like, well, this is kind of different. Doesn't seem like anyone else has pulled this off. And then we kind of kept talking to people, and doing the customer discovery as if we were a startup, and like, what is your biggest migraine level pain point? Banks suck. That is the migraine level pain point. Like, there is no one inside of these banks that I'm talking to that is even able to speak the language I speak. I mean, most of them, you know, they're trying to actually just move past the fact that they're in an 18-piece suit and the culture's never going to align. But from there, there's like understanding where they're coming from in terms of building a business and only having 2 months of cash flow left and all these other things. I mean, it really makes a difference to have someone on that other side that can speak that language. So anyways, that's the biggest problem. And then, so moving from Digital Sandbox to a Fountain City FinTech, moving into like, you know, you have the seed funds that are actually starting to pop up, and we're really starting to actually build an ecosystem. So the goal for Fountain City FinTech really is to solve my own problem that when Eric had to deal with a lot of my shit last year when I was completely in the doldrums and I wanted to start a company, but I wasn't prepared to. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew I was in a place that I didn't like, and I knew that I wanted to be in a happier place, and I knew I cared about FinTech. And if Fountain City FinTech would have existed back then, I think I would have actually had a direction to move to build that company with some advice that was actually helpful. So at the end of the day, hopefully it's a conduit for Kansas City entrepreneurs to start thinking about financial problems and lean into the network and the assets and the resources that we have as a city. I'll stop talking now.
No, that paints the picture really clearly. And we were talking about sort of messaging, and if you could summarize what you're doing in one sentence, and you said, we can move faster
Clearly can't.
But what you did say earlier was, we can move faster than anybody else. And as you're saying, the importance of making that connection as fast as possible. What does that mean to you? How do you want to help businesses in that way? You sort of described how you guys have an advantage, and you guys have a big reputation as the first financial technology accelerator in Kansas City. Could you sort of talk about so far what you're really proud of, and what connections and what things you guys have accomplished that since you guys started 3 days ago, that's not the beginning of the story. You guys have been building this for a while. Talk about some things that you've accomplished since the beginning.
You want to talk about the recruiting process?
Yeah, it was a wild ride. I'm trying to think and give like a sincere answer. I think one of the coolest things... Yeah, let me just lie to you. I think one of the coolest things about not just being the first financial technology accelerator in Kansas City, but also being the first partnership FinTech accelerator in the entire world, and I'm going to go ahead and say universe.
Yeah,
so I'm assuming that sounds just more powerful, and I don't think Pluto's on our level yet.
There you go.
But one of the really amazing things was kind of we didn't expect the level of applications, the level of interest, the level of press that we were getting. Mm-hmm. So we kind of threw this thing out into the world and did an all call. And like Zach was saying, 15 different countries applied. We were having conversations with founders from all different continents at all different hours of the day. And one of the really cool things about that was hearing their stories. And so understanding that this wasn't just a Ward Parkway problem or a Kansas City problem or a US problem, but this was a global problem, and there were people all over the world trying to solve it. Mm-hmm. So kind of every single phone call was invigorating and kind of made you realize, like, there's real problems out there, but that doesn't mean that we have to stop. We can solve them. And I think that was kind of the tipping point for me to understand, like, this isn't just words on the paper. We're going to make real impacts in our city, in the world, and we're really going to help some people along the way in financial technology, which is here to stay.
You want to talk a little? I'm going to tee this up for you because I think it's interesting. But
softball him.
Yeah, you knew zero about fintech. So she's got the avocado
he's
background.
being nice. Like, I knew like -4 about fintech.
Yeah, it was. Honestly, at the end of the day, the only reason I hired her is because Ben told me to. And then from there, I figured out, like, oh, this was a good decision. But it took me about 2 months to figure that out because she knew nothing about fintech. I mean, her ability to execute and like actually run the program, unbelievable, but does not know the landscape at all. So I think maybe it'd be valuable just for folks that maybe are not studying finance, but like halfway think that could be a thing eventually that could halfway be interesting.
Well, let me learn you.
How did you spin yourself up on that? Was it actually an interesting thing, and like, is it a big problem, I guess?
So I prided myself on being like the least techie millennial out there. I really thought technology was something somebody with glasses could deal with. And I was in the world of avocados. I was in the world of...
yeah, because that's so cool. Yeah.
Excuse me.
That's all right, I'm defensive.
Quick backstory, my family farm is in avocados. I'm not just like an avocado freak. But unfortunate fun fact about leaving college is the learning doesn't stop. And honestly, I love learning, so that's a good thing for me. I would be very uncomfortable in a place that didn't stimulate me constantly and keep me learning more about new things. So coming into fintech was very scary. I remember prepping for the interview and like practicing saying just the words to try and get the pronunciation right, because I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But yeah,
I think all of us have been there specifically.
Right? Yeah, just like, I can do this. But honestly, there's so much free stuff online, utilizing Google, utilizing YZ startups, everything like that, how to build a startup, how to start a startup, I guess is the real title. I through my MBA through jury, was able to get some good mentors underneath my belt, and I reached out to them and just like flailed and said, help me, I need to learn this stuff. So keep your connections close, because believe it or not, you will be using them outside of these four walls, for better or worse. And so I think that was really kind of where I started. And then once I started, I realized how little I actually knew. And one of the things that I think college really teaches you isn't the answer, it's how to find the answer. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now, honestly. Like, I had one of the founders email the other night and was like, do you know much about SOC 2? And I'm like, I don't. Like your second SOC, like I don't know. And so I researched all night long learning about SOC 2, SOC 1, and SOC 3. And
they're all compliance terms, by the way. They're like audits that you have to go through.
They're so fun.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of a constant learning cycle. So embrace it, learn to love it, because honey, you'll be doing it for a while.
So I guess the things, where to start on the things that have been fun. I mean, number one, this is the dream job. Like, it doesn't make any freaking sense that Megan and I get to wake up every day and do this. There's nothing more intoxicating than helping entrepreneurs. Like, there's nothing more rewarding than walking. I mean, we're on day 3, and I walked out of the office yesterday feeling like we added a bit of value. Like, not a lot, but a bit, we helped. And it was clear that a couple of the companies had rethought a couple of the ways that they functioned internally as a result of some of the things that we did yesterday. I mean, I think that's fair to say. Okay. It was a good day. But when leaving yesterday, I just about broke down in tears on the way home. I mean, there is nothing more powerful than helping an entrepreneur because of what that means to the people that they're going to help. I mean, if you go help Bernie Madoff grow his business, that's one thing. But
Please don't do that.
if you help an Eric Redline build a business that's going to help teach kids how to manage their finances, I mean, you have to be dead inside for that not to get to you, I think. So that's one piece, is just at the end of the day, like, there's nothing more rewarding. I think it's probably very similar to teaching. I would guess, at least. I have no clue, and maybe one day I'll find out. But I think the exciting parts to be really proud of is, as a bank, we're a bank. I just want to remind you of that. The average time that it takes for a corporation to stand up an internal accelerator is probably, I don't know, let's be generous and say 8 months. It's probably closer to 12, and like if we're really being honest, depending on the size of the corporation, 24. Megan and I have built this thing in the last 3.5, 4 months.
I started
Okay.
3 months
Mutual.
ago, and you came up, what? We shouldn't be doing math.
Yeah, 4 months.
Sorry,
Let's say
let's
4
just
months,
call
3,
it
4
4.
months, something like that.
7, I
And
don't
not, we had this idea a year ago and we kind of been working towards it slowly. Like, we decided 4 months ago that we were going to do a thing, and then we went and did a thing. And as a bank, that is absolutely mind-blowing. The biggest piece of feedback that we've gotten thus far is that we don't make any sense. Because of all the other banks that they've had conversations with. So I think, number one, the cadence and just speed at which this thing's gotten built is really exciting. The biggest piece, though, and the thing that I actually took a weekend off after was recruiting the companies. I am so overjoyed about the 6 companies that we have in this, and would put all 6 of them up against any accelerator on the fintech side in the United States. Probably international, even though in a lot of cases it's not a totally fair comparison. But legitimately against Barclays in New York, against whoever in the United States as a fintech accelerator, I would put the groups that we have involved directly up as, parallel, same level groups. In a lot of cases, I think that our groups are our companies are much more focused on solving actual problems and not solely focused on developing shareholder value. So I think that my hunch is that these 6 are actually going to go a lot farther as a result of the fact that they actually have a reason to get out of bed every day other than increasing the value of their stock. So that's, I'd say, probably the main things. And I'm so appreciative of Kansas City too. I guess that's the other portion of it. The amount of, every person that we've reached out to for help has stepped up and helped. Every person that we've reached out to come do some piece of programming has stepped up to do a piece of programming. So it's just another kind of reassuring moment of believing in this city and the future of it.
Well, and I think it's about, this is going to sound so cheesy, but like following your heart and your passion. It was good in my head, guys. But, as a new grad, like all of my friends are out in the workforce, and most of them hate their 9-to-5s. Like literally, they'll come home, I don't know, complain about it. I'm just trying to find a clean word there. And then go to sleep and do it again. And I didn't want to do that. Like, I did not want to do that. And I didn't know if it was just like something everyone did, like, oh, you hate your job, well, I guess this is life. And I think the entrepreneurship world kind of showed me, like, you can make your own ideas and your own assumptions and make your own path. But I think, honestly, the reason, like, Zach and I are so happy to do this, because this is hard work, but it's fun, and it's because we want to be here. We want to do these things. Before we took these jobs, kind of introspectively decided, like, what was important for us, and weren't going to settle on a credit analyst position. And, it's definitely much harder to take this path, a little bit scarier, a little less sure, but it pays freaking dividends in the end if you can just sit down and really kind of decide what you want to do and go after it, and not just maybe take the first opportunity that's in front of you just because it's easy.
Yeah, the only other thing I would say there is, like, we are incredibly lucky to have this opportunity. And this is, it's taken a long time to get to this point. I mean, we're both young, but we probably have more jobs than have had more jobs in the past than the average person our age. And
Well, and our boyish good looks. I mean,
boyish specifically, yes, that helps a lot.
They are misleading.
But we're very lucky to be in this position. So I would say, I mean, the one thing I would push back on a little bit is like and I know you didn't mean it in like a negative way, but like the credit analyst thing. Like, if you have to take a job, take the job, but hustle your way through it, right? Like
Maybe just don't settle for the job.
Don't sit on your laurels. Yeah, that's the key. But I'm with you.
I think there are probably a lot of up-and-coming entrepreneurs in the room, and there's lots of messages on what that entrepreneur should be, how they should interact with other people, what their personality should be like. I think the word grit gets thrown around a lot, following your passion, all those very true. I would like you guys to talk about what qualities you two have that set you guys apart in the entrepreneurial world. What do you think, beyond just working really hard endlessly, which I can see you both do daily, what do you guys think your personalities have that really set you apart?
Should we? 'Cause I don't want to do this for myself. Should we do it for each other again?
Okay.
Okay. I don't want to talk about myself like that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll talk about Megan first.
All right. Tell me how great I am.
Let me jump in. Megan legitimately has the ability to, and I think this is a thing that you can pick her up and just put her in any kind of company or
Because
any
I'm
kind
small.
yeah, that helps. But she can jump into something, figure out a process, figure out a system, find where it's broken, or if there is no system, figure out what the system should be and build it. And if it's too early to build the system, she can test 3 different systems. Even if she doesn't necessarily understand what the subject matter is, what the hell is going on in a more broad fashion. I mean, she jumped straight into this experience with not a lot of background in anything that we were talking about and started creating scalable systems and processes that we would not be functioning as well as we are day to day right now if we did not have. And that is without understanding what an API is, that is without understanding what an SDK is, that is like without knowing 90% of the acronyms that we throw out inside the bank every day. She can legitimately just go in and operate. So I think one of the biggest things that you can get out of Block, if you lean into Block, that you can get out of Block, is learning how to operate. Specifically, I mean, becoming an ambassador for the Regnier Institute, you learn a ton. Working under Ben, my experience was I had no clue how to operate, and he would just consistently just like slap me back into place. Like, no, you're too far to the right. No, you're too far to the, like, get back in that, here. Herding cats. There's something really valuable about the ability to operate, and Kansas City needs operators in startups. And that is the best way to learn how to start a startup. Like, Paul Graham will, if he was here, he would stand up in front of you and say, don't start a company, join one. Because at the end of the day, like the amount of, start a company if you feel like you're really ready for that, but it is, okay, I was about to cuss. It is hard. It is really, 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 really hard.
Yeah.
I can't even put enough hards on that for it to truly match how hard it is. But it is the most difficult thing that you'll do in your entire life if you do it. And that kind of comes back to why I love helping him, is because what Eric has done, I mean, he has 3 kids and he's jumped off this building and he's trying to build a plane on the way down. Like, how do you not respect that? So anyways, that's what I would say. I think you're a master operator, and it doesn't matter what the industry is.
Thanks. I mean, that is a testament to my education here and really in Actus, honestly. Just learning one-time management, that is key. You'll be surprised when you get into the workforce how far just simple organizational tools will go. I mean, like, really surprised. So if you can learn those and get those down pat, you'll already be head and shoulders above people your own age. And to your freaking hard part about being an entrepreneur, having like started my own business, I could write not just a book or a novel, but like a 14-part series of things not to do. Like, you fall on your face so much as a young entrepreneur, just like crash and burn on the daily. And so if you can kind of get your bearings and join a company first, having not done that, I would recommend doing that. Okay, flipping it to what I like about Zach, or why, what is the question?
What sets him apart in the entrepreneurial world?
Okay, what sets Zach apart in the entrepreneurial world? Honestly, if you haven't noticed by now, Zach is a very genuine person. And in the business world and in the entrepreneurial world, that is really hard to come by, honestly. You're genuine, people just naturally kind of get what you're talking about and are on board, and I've never felt awkward. I mean, I feel awkward all the time, but like
right now?
Yeah, but I don't think anyone's really felt awkward around you. You can kind of convey a subject matter very eloquently, and there's an idea called imposter syndrome, which I have a lot of, the idea that like, I have to be more than I am. I have to like be more professional because I'm young, or I have to talk in a deeper voice because I'm a woman. There's just like tons of weird things that as a young professional you feel like, oh, I should be doing this, even though like, why? This isn't who you are. And I've never felt you do any of that. You're just very genuine, and honestly, it speaks to the depth of your connections in the city, the caliber to which you're able to operate. I don't know, I think that's I guess a weird quality, but I really do believe like just being genuine, being yourself. Oh, I'm so like catchy, like that's not nice. Is that a good one?
I mean, would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that makes me less uncomfortable than other ways of talking about myself, so I can jump in on that. I think if you work in startups and you're not genuine, you're not going to be working in startups very long. This is.
But it's so like the entrepreneurs are like, oh, how's your business? It's great. Like fake smiles, handshakes, go home.
Yeah, but
cry in a corner.
at the end of this conversation, somebody's going to ask me how Fountain City FinTech's going, and it's great, it's wonderful. Like Jeff asked me earlier, and like, yeah, it's wonderful, it's great, but also like, I don't know, like it's incredibly scary, and you know, Eric is depending on us. We have 5 other companies depending on us. Like, scared shitless when I wake up every morning. I'm incredibly excited, but I'm scared shitless. So it doesn't change, and I think that you have to hide some of that sometimes just to get through the day. But yeah, if you're not legitimately inside yourself driven to be inside of this world, it's probably best to get a day job, because this world is really, 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 really hard to function in if you are not a little bit crazy, obsessive, and don't have an issue, you know, working way too many hours in a week and, you know, making some sacrifices on relationships and other portions of your life. So it's just what you gotta do, I guess.
One final question, and then we'll sort of turn it to the audience. But I'd like you guys to talk about what's your general advice for not only UMKC students, but for Block students who are trying to get to where you are today, whether they want to get into financial technology or owning their own venture one day. What did you guys do in college that really led you to success?
Go ahead.
You better start, because all I'm thinking is that Tommy Boy scene where he's like, stay as long as you can.
Yeah, that would not be my answer. Yeah. I stayed for 5 years, but that wasn't really on purpose. Yeah, so I think I can go a lot of directions with it. I think it really depends on what you're trying to get out of your time at UMKC. The biggest thing that I would say, and the biggest thing that you should do while you're still at UMKC, is ask as many people in this city to help you as you possibly can. Key portion of that is having a reason for that person to help you. There's a difference between reaching out to somebody to grab a cup of coffee, just to grab a cup of coffee, versus, in Kansas City, people will actually say yes to that a lot, and during the not insanely busy season, I will generally say that yes to that all the time. And we're a super generous city. But if you're in a city where if you have something that you're legitimately working towards that could have a positive impact, or even if it's just a company that is making some decent money, other entrepreneurs are going to be willing to meet with you. And it's not just other entrepreneurs in startup land, but it's, people like Tom Block, people like Henry. I mean, a few years ago, Henry was still having so many conversations with entrepreneurs absolutely every day. And he would say yes to students for coffee. This is Henry Block we're talking about, it's wild. And he's just one example of people in the city that are just willing to have that conversation and be helpful. So lean into that. Ask as many people to get coffee as you can. Jenna in the middle has done an awesome job of that. And I would say also get involved in as many things as you can while you're there. I mean, I think there's diminishing returns depending on, what world you're in, but Jenna got involved in One Day KC back when she was in high school, right? Weren't you at Blue Valley Cap still? So, and you're what, now a junior? So I've known Jenna now for 4 or 5 years then, I guess? 4 years is, yeah. When was One Day KC? A while ago. Okay, so he doesn't know either. 4 years, something like that. And really at the end of the day, it's about data points over time. Paul Singh, I think it was, said this to me the first time. He was one of the co-founders of 500 Startups that's no longer there. But he said it's about data points over time, right? So if I come into town and I see you doing this, and you're starting kind of at the, right at the origin of the XY plot, right? And then I come in town a year later, oh, and you're doing this now, and you're kind of moving off the origin, you're moving up and to the right, but not, incredibly quickly. And then I come in town 2 years later, or I get an email from you, a year later, hey, I did this thing, just wanted to keep you in the loop, right? And it just kind of builds over time. And I've seen Jenna go from One Day KC participant to, leader of YEP, to intern at C2FO, to writing her own blog, to now she's on to like the next thing. And I'm seeing these dots with Jenna continue to build and build and build. And now we're having conversations about her potentially being an intern at Fountain City FinTech, because if I wouldn't have had that initial conversation with her at CAP, or when she was at CAPS, and kind of developed her, and she was the one that developed the relationship over time. She stayed in touch with me. I mean, there was, when I saw you, I would say hi, but like you were the one reaching out to me consistently. So it's those data points over time, and having people see you grow and being able to really understand why they would invest that time in you.
I think, in all seriousness, I've been really kind of contemplating, there's 3 different things that really stick out to me as kind of what I wish I would have known then. One of them is, if you can, sit down and think about what you like and what you're good at, and not just what majors are out there, but truly what you like and what you're good at, and then start researching jobs that encompass that, start job shadowing people. Making those connections early on is going to really put you on the right foot towards your actual path. So I know the average millennial, changes jobs like 4,000 times in their life, but if you can at least change jobs in the field that you love, it'll mean so much more to you in the end. So really focusing on those 2 things paid dividends for me in the long run, but I learned it at 22 and not 18. I think the other thing, when I was in undergrad, I thought I would join every single organization on campus. I was a member of the biology club as a business major. I was involved in Enactus. I was in a sorority. I was actually in a fraternity, too. Had to cut my hair for that. No,
we won't get into that.
I joined everything because I thought that's what it meant to get involved and get entrenched. And I was doing what people told me to do, but I didn't understand why I wasn't making those meaningful connections, because I wasn't doing a few things well. I was kind of, can I say the A word?
Yes.
I was like half-assing a bunch of things instead of like, really doing a few things well. And so when I came back to UMKC to get my graduate degree, I thought, all right, this is my chance. I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it right. And so I became involved in Enactus and just really put my heart and soul into it. And that has paid more than any of those 10,000 clubs I joined in the past. Making meaningful connections is probably my 3rd tidbit of, imparting my elderly wisdom upon you. That really, it doesn't mean much to shake hands or go get coffee. And I'm reiterating a little bit on what Zach said, but it takes much more to start building a network of true companions, mentors, advisors, friends, colleagues, you name it. You can't just be like, oh, your name's Melissa Morgan. I saw you at this one thing, we shook hands. You remember me, right? You've got to constantly build those data points, make meaningful connections, and it's hard. That is something they don't tell you, is that stuff is really hard to put yourself out there, and don't get a response email, but you keep badgering them. You're making a name for yourself. You're getting coffee not just once, but a few times every year with the same people and really kind of trying to hone in on what your story is and tell it right and tell it to the right people and make those connections. And I think if I had to put an asterisk on that 3, I would give one more little piece of advice, and that would be that you don't have to take out student loans to go to college. That's like my quick tidbit. Like I grew up, I told you, very poor. Went to community college, was like, I don't think college is for me. There's no way I can pay for it. I have like become entrenched in the scholarship area. So please reach out to me if you're like, you're insane, I have to take out student loans. Like, let me help you. I can hook you up. There are ways out there to get college paid for and get paid to go to college, so.
I love it.
It's true, it's really true. I wish someone would have told me that at 18 too.
Oh, that reminds me, 2 more things. So one quickly,
never getting out of
on the
here.
coffee thing, follow up. People are not ignoring you. They're just busy, and, well, they might be ignoring you. But if they are, to hell with it. Send them another email. Why not? Follow up with people, because I promise you, they want to get back to you, but your email is somewhere buried in their inbox. The other thing is, if you can, this is not an easy thing necessarily to do, find a job where you can build something. One of the best learning experiences that I had while I was in college was working for Ben and building One Day KC, which was just, it was a hell of an undertaking at the time, but looking back, it was not the biggest deal in the world. It was 35 students that came together for a 15-hour hackathon where we went to 4 or 5 different places. And it was really just an experience, or a chance to meet co-founders. I was having a hard time meeting other people that wanted to start companies in KC, or at UMKC, so I was like, well, maybe there are other schools, let's bring them together. And got paid, not insane dollars, but like, UMKC pays pretty decently well, and I was at least able to pay for food and whatever as I was building this thing. So when you think entrepreneurship in some of these classes, you think I have to go start a company. Just build something. Start building something and learn through that. I'll stop there.
Yeah, sorry.
Don't be. Thank you so much. I think we can take 1 or 2 really awesome questions. Allie's going to come around the room. Raise your hand if you have a question, and she'll bring the mic to you. Who has questions?
Hi, my name is Nathan. My question is, how do you go about asking someone for help or to become a mentor while providing a beneficial relationship to both parties?
Like rock, paper, scissors for it?
Just go.
Okay. I think for me, you're not going to get a mentor if you don't ask. So you can build relationships with someone, but while organically you'll kind of have a semblance of that relationship as you, it's as easy as a professor or someone in the field that you like reaching out and just saying, hey, can we get coffee? Can I pick your brain? That's like my favorite phrase ever. Can I pick your brain about something? And kind of organically growing that relationship a little bit, but then ask them, just be like, could you be my mentor in this space? I really appreciate all of your knowledge in this area. And that's where I've really been able to kind of solidify those relationships over time versus just kind of keeping in touch, going over coffee, asking for advice. But once they're like, of course I'll be your mentor. It's a much more easy way to just text them and be like, I'm in trouble, help me.
So are you familiar with the term of product market fit generally? There's a market, you got a product, people are buying it, it's time to go grow the company. Like, are you solving the problem that needs to be solved, right? I think there's something about like either business mentor fit or human mentor fit. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, I think you need to align as humans, right? To your point, how do you make sure it's mutually beneficial? If you're starting a clothing line and you're asking a guy that started a coffee company to be your mentor, there's some basic, just logical alignment there, and making sure that the person that you're asking to be your mentor can actually help you with the things you need help with. Right. So I think the first step is being introspective about what it is that you actually need help with. If you're great at a certain thing, it's really easy to focus on that thing and just get better and better and better at it, instead of really taking that stock, figuring out what the thing is that you need to get better on, owning it, and then being vulnerable with that mentor and saying, this is the thing that I'm struggling with. Like, you've gotten coffee with me because I'm really good at this, this, and this. you don't need to necessarily say that, but that's why they're willing to get together with you, right? But at the end of the day, if you're willing to be vulnerable with them and just kind of let down your guard and say, I have no idea how to do this, that's a really powerful
And do
thing.
your research beforehand, like actually, for lack of a better word, creep on them and make sure that you understand who they are and their strengths, and then you can kind of pontificate on that a little bit further down the line, but no one is going to want to get a second coffee if you're like, hi, I'm Nathan, what's your name?
Yeah.
You're like, I'm sorry, what? Why am I wasting my time?
Doing the legwork up front is really important, and then having a really clear ask to start. I mean, mentorships generally don't start with, hi, will you be my mentor? Right? Like, that's what you were saying. It starts with...
Don't start with that.
So I think a good example and maybe like a story point is actually, so Eric Jorgensen sitting in the corner over here works for Zarly. His CEO is named Bo Fishback. He's a bit of a legend in this town in a lot of different ways, but specifically I would call him probably the best fundraiser in Kansas City. Has left to raise money in the Valley before, now they're back and have raised here a bit, and they're moving in a positive direction, and I have a feeling Eric will be up here in a few years, or Bo, or somebody. But anyways, point being, when I was at Bloom, so when I joined Bloom, there really wasn't the vernacular for startup inside of the company. Like, they were starting a startup. They were functioning through the internet. They were going to try and be a high-growth company, but the word startup, the connections to the Kauffman Foundation, like all of these things were not there, and they were right inside Kansas City, right? They're right in the center hub of all these resources. And one of the first people that Chris met, and that he was actually nice enough to take me to the meeting with, was Bo Fishback. And it was supposed to be, I think, a 20-minute coffee meeting, and that was the extent of Chris's ask at that point. It was 20 minutes, let's get together, let's have a conversation about fundraising. We're going to go raise a series. Like, by this time, all three of these founders, to talk about how serious it is, had put $2 to $3 million of their own money in this thing. I mean, it was getting to a point where they had invested so much that if they didn't find somebody else to step in and really help with the next step, that pretty much all those dollars that they had put in were sunk. So we have an ecosystem that's developing pretty well, but it's not a fully developed ecosystem. And there's not a ton of people that you can go to and get really solid advice on fundraising. At the end of the day, there's probably less than 10 at the time that we were having this conversation, and maybe that's, closer to 20 now, but there's not a ton of people in this city that know truly the grander international landscape of fundraising. So anyways, we sit down with Bo at XWA. He's wearing shorts and a backwards hat as he normally does. 20 minutes, coffee meeting turns into like an hour and a half, and he misses a second meeting that was after it. And that's the best way for a mentorship to start, is make a small ask and blow him the hell out of the water with what it is that you're actually working on, or what it is that you need, or these hidden data points. And I think that's really what it was, is he was coming there, he was doing his civic duty, he didn't know what he was getting himself into. And turns out now, after hearing the story, getting to know Chris, seeing the metrics, seeing what we were working on, seeing the user growth, all these other things, he's now an investor and a board member. And the company would not be where it is today without him. So it's building these little nuggets of the beginning of a relationship into something bigger, but it requires the work beforehand, or it requires the work afterwards, but there is work involved. So that was a really long-winded answer to your question, but hopefully we covered it.
You got all that, right?
Everyone, please join me in thanking Zach Pettet.
Oh, by myself?
Going one by one. And please join me in thanking Megan Darnell for being here today.